Hey everybody, Tim Anderson here, aka Renfell, and welcome to me talking about the first three episodes from the Wheel of Time show. Um, I don't really, I think I've only ever done one other review of a show before here on my YouTube channel. Maybe I'll do more of these. I probably should, because like I loved Arcane, and I talked about it on my Mondays and Monday Musing show. But in any case, I do want to get my thoughts out here because as my internal audience knows, those of you who've been following for a long time, I am a huge fan of the Wheel of Time books. For those of you who have read Echoes of the Past, the first book in the saga of Leucemia, you'll know that Jordan, along with Tad Williams and Raymond Feist, were sort of like the three main influences. I loved, a lot of the stuff got inspiration from Feist for some things, some inspiration from um, Tad Williams and a couple of other places. But Jordan has always been like, in terms of the way I like to write, um, I've always loved his style more than many other writers. So I'm a huge fan of Jordan, and I've been anticipating this show for a long time, like a lot of other people. I am not a book purist, however. I very much understand the need for adaptations and the need for things to be different based on the medium that they are being created for. So I say that so that going into this episode, going into this YouTube video, we're going to be talking about some of the differences that I've seen so far in the books versus the show and why I don't really care so much because I'm happy to see things play out however they play out because it is a different adaptation. Before we get into this episode, big, huge spoiler alert. I am not going to be doing a spoiler free review of the show. I'm going to be talking about the differences of things in the show versus the books and why I think in some cases those are good things, other places I think they might be bad things. But this is not spoiler free territory. So if you're looking for somebody to talk about the show in a spoiler free manner, this is not the place. I'm going to be talking about shit. So just get ready. If you like what you hear today, don't forget to smash the like button, the thumbs up button. Of course, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon. Because I might do more shows in the future, but I also do book reviews and all the other gaming stuff that I do here. So stick around for all that kind of stuff. And join our Discord if you want. Links are below. So let's dive in. First and foremost, as I said, I am not a book purist. So for me, I'm happy to see things in whatever medium. This goes back to me looking at Star Wars and saying, I don't really care what Disney does with the franchise. I will always watch Star Wars. Always. I will always read Star Wars books. I will consume Star Wars comics. I do not care how they adapt things. I love Star Wars in all forms. I might not like the Disney era movies as much as I like the George Lucas movies. I might prefer the expanded universe content to a lot of the newer stuff. It doesn't really matter. I'm still going to consume it. I'm still going to love it. When when Peter Jackson did the adaptation for Lord of the Rings, I knew that was going to be probably the only version of the Lord of the Rings to come to the big screen in my lifetime. And so I looked at it and said, I'm going to accept whatever version they put out, and I'm going to see if I enjoy it and look for enjoyment. And I'm not going to, that's the most important thing. I am going to look for entertainment and look for enjoyment in that content. I'm not going to sit here and critique it for all of the things that it didn't get right because it didn't follow the book. So, right out of the gate, I am not a book purist, and so I did not go into the Wheel of Time series on TV with any expectations of them staying exactly true to the book. I knew there was going to be changes because that's just the nature of adapting something. And I mentioned this in my Monday Musings episode, the episode 46. You can't take a 14 book series and expect Amazon to allow the show to go for 14 seasons. That's not going to happen. Even Game of Thrones got what 7, 8 seasons, and those books aren't even finished. But you have to we're also not, we don't live in an era where networks like Amazon will produce a 24 episode show. They're going to want, as we see, they get 8 episodes for the first season. We're talking 8 to 10, 10 to 12. That's somewhere in that bracket is what we tend to get from shows these days. And those are still very expensive shows to produce where they're costing conservatively, $10 million an episode, not counting the marketing that they're going to be spending on, promoting this out there to the world. So it's a big investment from a monetary standpoint. Um, so going into this right off the bat, I knew that there were going to be changes, and I didn't set myself up for disappointment. I have read some of the book purists' reactions, and honestly, my gut reaction to that is fuck off. Like, fuck off. Politely, but fuck off. I really appreciated, I have read Brandon Sanderson's comments on Reddit, and if hopefully I'll remember to link those down below. But he went on Reddit and he made some comments about the first episode and the second episode, and he's made a bunch of comments other places as well. He was a consulting producer on the show, which means he didn't have any, he really didn't have any oversight. He just was there to consult with Raph and some other people about certain elements. So one of the things I want to talk about that took me by surprise during the first episode, and it's probably the most controversial of the changes that have happened so far in the first three episodes, which is the fact that they gave Perrin a wife and then he killed that wife in the first episode. And I looked at that and I didn't internalize it the way that it was explained by Sanderson. And when I read Sanderson's explanation, which was the explanation he was given by Raph, um, the showrunner, I went, oh, that actually makes sense now that I understand it. Because I was sitting here, that was something that it did. It rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, the fact that they gave him a wife and then he killed her, obviously an accident in the heat of the moment, but it was an accidental death. And I was like, why did they do that? Because in my mind, I'm three episodes in and it was still bugging me after the third episode because I didn't see how that had created any sort of like character arc for that character. I was like, how is that supposed to play into the arc of Perrin's journey? Because I'm not seeing it. Like, I don't get why they did that. It's a decision that I totally don't understand. And then I went and I read Brandon Sanderson's explanation of it as explained to him by the showrunner, and I went, oh, that makes sense. And the way it was explained to him, and the way it was apparently being meant, the way it was intended to be taken, is that they were trying to, because with all of these characters they have to speed up the arc because they're not given as much, you can't have as much space as you do in those 300 400,000 word novels, so they have to compact some of the storyline for these characters and make the arc a lot shorter so that you're able to get into the character more quickly. And the what the intention was to show how Perrin has within him this berserker rage, which is something that comes, it does play a part in his character in the book. That's the wolf side of him, um, losing himself to the wolf and losing himself to that internal rage. And they created that as sort of a character flaw. And when I read it that way, when I read it the way that it was intended to be taken, it it shifted that for me, and I went from a why the hell did they do this to a oh, okay, I totally get that. Now here's the fun part. Brandon Sanderson did not agree with that at all and was pretty, I guess the way I understood the way he wrote it, he had some serious disagreements with the showrunner Raph on that being a part of it. But he also said after having watched the episode, he said it does portray what was needed to help people understand that that character has some internal rage within him that's uncontrollable, because that's literally what happened. Was he got in the heat of the moment, he's killing Trollocs, and then loses himself to that, and when he turns around thinking it's another Trolloc, it's actually his wife. Now, I still don't agree with, and this is the funny thing, Sanderson doesn't agree with it either, even after he saw the episode. But he said, and I mentioned this in my other show, the way Sanderson said it, he says once I was able to just kind of disassociate myself from this and say it's kind of like the show, the wheel has spun out another rotation. And I was like, oh my God, you're bringing the wheel into this, and that's a great analogy for this. Like, if you can view the show as its own thing, it because that's what it is. It's an adaptation, not a copy of your favorite books, because I love these books. They are absolutely my all-time favorite fantasy books, flaws and all. It's my all-time favorite series. Um, but you have to separate that. You have to be able to separate adaptations. You can't do the same thing in an audiobook that you can do in a TV show. You can't do the same thing in a TV show that you can do in a movie, and vice versa. And books are also really big places, and you don't have that much room to maneuver when you're doing a series or a movie. So I understand all that. Again, not a book purist, but that change was something that bothered me, even though I understood that it was an adaptation. I just didn't understand the reason why they did that. After I read Sanderson's take on Reddit and what he got from the showrunner Raf, am I pronouncing that as it Raf or Rafe? Who cares? I'll figure it out later. Um, I went, oh, okay, that makes a little more sense now. They're portraying the rage of that character. So, controversial, yes, not the end of the world. I totally get why they did it. Um, I'm okay generally with things that they make in adaptations as long as they don't change the core of what the character is, like changing a character from good to evil. That wouldn't work for me. Also, I feel like, if they did something crazy like, no, Randall Thor isn't the Dragon Reborn, it's gonna be Egwene, because we got to make it a female character in the 21st century, like, because we got to be woke. Like that kind of change, I would be totally up in arms about because I would be like, that's not an adaptation anymore. That's you just making shit up because that's not what that story was about, and it never was about that. So barring those kind of changes, I'm pretty much, you know, ready to roll with the punches, so to speak. I also didn't get, and I still don't get, and I haven't read any explanations that make it make sense to me yet. And I'm thinking maybe, hopefully, it will long term. I'm wondering if one of the reasons is because they wanted to help show that she is a strong, independent woman who don't need no man, um, which is Nynaeve um, being captured by the Trolloc and not being a part of the group that leaves Emmons Field and leaves the Two Rivers together. Like she's not part of that group, and I was sitting there struggling with that, going, "Where is she?" She can't get killed off, obviously, and this is something my wife had no idea. She was like, "That character's dead," and I didn't say a word. I was just like, "Well, we'll just wait." And in my mind, I'm thinking, let's just see how this plays out because she is like a major character, and they're not going to off a major character in the very beginning like that. Plus, she's one of the main cast. So yeah, that's not going to happen. But I was very interested to see what they were going to do with that arc. And then, she escapes, kills the Trolloc, comes back, and it's left hanging by the end of the third episode because Lan is asking her, "How did you track me?" Like, and that's something that we see a little bit of in the books. But I think I could be wrong. But in my mind, I think the reason they did that for the show, again, was to establish that she is a dominating female character that don't need no man, and to establish that she is equal to, in every way, Lan, because as those of us who have read the books know, those characters end up together. And I think that that's why they did that. I don't know that that's the case. I am assuming, but we'll see how that pans out. Matt's character, you know, I don't know. Here's the thing. I knew going into this that they've recast the character of Matt for the second season. So I'm already sort of disassociated with the actor who's playing him in season one because I know he's gone in season two. They have a different actor who's portraying him in season two. And so there's a part of me that's having a hard time. And here's the funny thing, he is my favorite book character. I don't care for the portrayal of the person who is playing him. I don't even know any of the actors' names. The actor who's portraying him in season one here, I'm just not feeling it. Like it's not like they've made him a little too much of kind of like he's kind of a low life, and I never viewed him as that in the books. Like I didn't feel like he was a low life. He was just like the town slacker. He's like the one friend who, is afraid of work, doesn't want to get his hands dirty, so he'd prefer to, shirk his duties and go out and play and have fun as opposed to do any actual hard work or labor. But he was never portrayed as sort of a kind of a scummy guy. And the fact that he like, stole the bracelet and because he was already in debt from playing dice and like I felt like that was and again, I understand why they're doing that because they're speeding up the arc of that character. Um, but I'm not a big fan of that yet. And it could be just because I know that that actor is being replaced in season two. So there's a part of my mind that's already sort of like, nah, he's a throwaway actor. So I'm kind of not able to get attached to that character. And I don't know if that's the case. It could also be this might be the reason why he didn't continue into season two is because everybody else felt the same way. Like he just wasn't giving the character the life that it needed. It just seems like a lackluster performance from the actor, or just I don't know. Maybe that's just how I feel. Um, I know some other stuff I've read online. People have been disappointed with like, oh, the dagger just is right there in a corner in Shadar Logoth. It's just there. Like, what? Like that makes no sense. It's just this thing. But that's one of those things where they have to speed up the plot. What's interesting to me is that like 3 episodes in, by the end of the third episode, we're already like halfway through through the first book. And I know you have to speed things up a little bit, but at the same time, it's like, damn, like we're really moving along. I feel like if we've got 8 episodes, I feel like they're going to try to get us through maybe the first 2 books in their entirety. Because I've also read that the showrunner has said he's trying to do this, and if he's allowed to do so, he's going to do it in 8 seasons. Is his plan? 8 seasons to do 14 books. So that comes out to roughly 2 books, not quite, but let's say almost 2 books per season. So they really, I feel like they are on a mission and they've got to cruise along like they really do kind of need to do 2 books in or close to, let's say 1 3/4 in this first season. I'm really interested because it's really interesting to see where they're gonna end up by the end of the 8 episodes. One thing I don't like. I understand why they did it. I don't like the whole Moraine coming in and saying it could be one of the 4 of you, and I'm like, bullshit. It's a male. It's a male. Like, like this whole thing that it could be one of you. It could be any of you. That's not true, and I don't like that change. I understand why they made that change. I don't agree with that change. The reason they made that change, as far as I understand it, is they're trying to modernize the show adaptation for a modern audience because a lot of people feel that Jordan's portrayal was hard on women and very male centric. Even though there were strong female characters, they were often under the male gaze or portrayed from a male gaze, and they wanted to make the female characters a little stronger and feel like they are of equal importance. All of which are good things, but I don't agree that that was a change that was needed to help make the female characters be more important or be more valuable or be equal to the men in any way. So this whole "it could be any of you" line, I really don't like that. Like it was known from the prophecy that that was it's a male. And so I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that. Also, in terms of the compacted speed line, compacted speed of the story and everything, that was one thing that really took me by surprise. Is like in the first episode, the scene with Tam and the sword was just amazing. Like defending himself, and he pulls the sword out from underneath the bed, and we get a close up of the hair on the blade, and then Dad goes into Tam goes into defensive stance and starts defending against the Trolloc, and he's holding his own, and you're like, yeah, this is the back, this is the dad who has the secret, and then just like then next thing his shoulder pierced in town, gets healed, and then they're off and they're leaving the Two Rivers, and there's no explanation at all given to Rand's character or the fact that he's adopted and his dad found him. Like all of these, like the storyline with Rand's father. Not he didn't find him. Sorry, I'm speeding up here. But the Ale bloodline, like that is something that we've completely skipped over. Like maybe it's going to play out later in the show, but I just there's some aspects of the show maybe along at such a rapid pace that I feel like they're leaving some important bits out. But again, I'm happy to roll with it because I'm like in the Brandon Sanderson camp here of going, it's Wheel of Time. We should be celebrating it no matter how it's portrayed. Um, and we should be enjoying the fact that we were given a chance to see this on the big screen and that Amazon has been willing to put so much money into it, renew it for a second season, really invest in it. Like, these are things that should be celebrated. We shouldn't be nitpicking. And this is, by the way, this is not me nitpicking. And again, remember, I like the show. I'm not a book purist. I'm just giving my honest thoughts and opinions about some of the things I've seen so far. It just feels very compacted, and some of that for me is difficult to get into. But I will say this because I watched my wife watch it. She doesn't have the baggage that I have because I've read the books. So she is like enthralled. Like, this is amazing. Like, this is so cool. Like, oh my God. So she's really feeling it, and it makes sense to her, which if I can appreciate it from that standpoint by disassociating myself from the baggage that I have because of the books that I've read, when I watch her interpretation of it, I know that they've done a good job because it makes sense to her and she's enjoying it. And she is a complete newbie to the Wheel of Time. And that, in my mind, is the perfect take on whether or not the show could be successful in the eyes of the general public because it has taken core elements of the show and made them into an entertaining enough storyline that someone like her can understand what's going on. So it remains to be seen how this is going to pan out in the long run, but I'm really enjoying it so far, and I'm hoping to see, really interested to see where they go. Now, what I was getting at earlier when I jumped back to the, it could be any of you. What's interesting to me is like, are we going to know, or is that going to be the end of season one? Like, I'm very interested now to see, are we going to find out who the Dragon Reborn is before the end of the season? Or not, because if you look at the name of the episodes, let me go look them up because we actually do know. Um, Let me find the show notes. We do know the names of the first 6 episodes, and episode 4, which is the next episode, is called "The Dragon Reborn." So I'm hoping that because episode 4 is the midway point, I really hope that we see Rand being named the Dragon Reborn in episode 4, like him coming to the realization. But I also don't know that that's has enough time because where they left him and Matt meeting Tom and now they're going to have to, they're fleeing town. I don't know if there's enough time for that to happen. So I don't know. But I'm also wondering in the back of my mind, are they going to try to hold that reveal for the end of this first season? Like we're going to have to wait till all the way to the end of the first season for us to know that Rand is the Dragon Reborn. Like, you know, I don't know. I would love it if they do midway through. But I mean, I can't really say much because all I can look at and know is that the fourth episode is called The Dragon Reborn, and I was like, it would make sense for the episode named The Dragon Reborn to also have the Dragon Reborn being finally identified, but it also could just be a name. It could be maybe they go into the backstory of the Dragon Reborn in that episode. They talk about the history. Maybe that's when we find out about Rand's heritage. But how would we? Because Tam is back in the village and they're not with Moraine. And like I got all these questions. So like everybody else, I have to wait. I hate shows that do weekly anymore because I got spoiled by Netflix dropping all things at once. So we're gonna have to wait week to week. That's my thoughts. Those are my thoughts. Not that is my thoughts. Those are my thoughts after watching the first 3 episodes. I give it a 7 out of 10. It's enjoyable. It's fun. The Trollocs are amazing. There have been some moments that really made me go, yee, like Tam pulling out the sword from underneath the bed. Um, some really cool stuff I've seen so far. Moraine kicking ass with Lan defending her. That was always how I envisioned in the books. The warders, being a protective force to kind of protect the channelers when they're deep into a trance, and channeling power. Um, they can defend against channeling attacks, obviously, but physical attacks, that's something that they might need help with. So I love that element of it. Um, I love the fact that Sanderson was allowed to give a lot of input, and they apparently have taken a lot of his input into the script writing because he was talking about some of these elements. One of that being one of them, he loved the fact that they took his notes on, hey, Lan should be protecting her more, and then like he was like, wouldn't it be really cool if he dove in front of Moraine and like got a Trolloc, and they actually put that in that episode, and so he was really excited about that. So I mean, there's a lot of stuff that they're doing right. It is enjoyable. Things that I don't like, which as I mentioned, I don't like the portrayal of Matt's character, and I don't know if that's just because I don't the actor's not doing a good job, or because I know that that character's on his way out at the end of this season, so I'm just not allowing myself to like his portrayal of the character. I feel it's too condensed in some areas, but it is what it is because they have to make changes. And this is the most important part. You, the viewer, are not the showrunner of the show. You need to trust that this company was put millions, hundreds of millions of dollars on the line to produce this. The people who are producing the show are the right people. These are hugely passionate. One of the executive producers and consultants on the show has read the series more than 30 times. These are people who are intimately familiar with the Wheel of Time and are doing everything they can to make an adaptation that is as faithful to the books in spirit and tone as realistically possible given the limitations of the small screen that they're working with. So keep that in the back of your mind when you're watching this because it is highly enjoyable, even though there are some things that differ from the books. Just try to separate yourself. As Sanderson said, consider this another revolution of the wheel and look at it that way. And if you can separate the adaptation aspect out, you should be able to enjoy it a lot more. Hopefully, you enjoyed my take on things. I may do more reviews as the show goes along. I don't know. But for now, those are my thoughts after the first 3 episodes. Let me know if you like this video. Leave a like, leave your comments below. And of course, don't forget to follow the channel, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and join our Discord if you want to hang out with my wife, my brother, and I in our community as we do all the other fun stuff we do. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. Have fun, everybody.